رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. I would like to look at the topic of Islamized education. And I've used it as distinct from Islamic education, though there's overlapping between the two. But Islamized education, in my view, is the actual goal that we need to achieve in our educational institutions in the Muslim world. Because education, first and foremost, refers to a civilization's transfer of its values, its morals, its principles to the next generation. Yeah, there is a transfer of knowledge in terms of mathematics and psychology or whatever subjects, but these are the vehicles or the tools by which the values are transferred. And this is not something new. It's not new just to Western civilization. All civilizations are engaged in the same process, transferring their values to the next generation. And this is the essence, or to me, it's the best definition that I found of education, because if you go to the Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge, you'll find so many different definitions, but this is the one which I felt really hit the nail on the head. Transfer of culture. So naturally, what we as Muslims need to do is to transfer our culture, the Islamic culture, from the current generation to the next. From a Western perspective, Western civilization, which is now dominant in the world, they are engaged in conveying their values and their preferences, their cultural likes and dislikes, etc. The basis of that educational process is materialistic for the most part. It doesn't contain morality as an essential part of it. Morality is left up to the democratic principles of the majority agreeing on what is right and what is wrong. So the moral principles will change from century to century, from decade to decade. So it's in a constant flow and flux. Whereas from the Islamic perspective, the moral principles should be hard and fast, solid, unchangeable, because people don't change. Human beings don't change. We remain human beings. So the moral principles which are needed to guide our lives, they don't need to change every decade or every century. It's not necessary. And the moral principles in the Islamic context is based on the 5 pillars of Islam. The 5 pillars of Islam begin with the Shahadatan, the two declarations of faith. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. These two declarations of faith contain in them moral principles. They require us as human beings to be morally good in relationship to God, in relationship to our fellow human beings, and in relationship to the world that we live in. So the education should reflect that. So when teaching, for example, the 5 pillars of Islam, rather than focusing on memorizing the names and the details of implementation on a practical level, we should be emphasizing the moral principles behind the pillars of Islam. This is how we should be focused. Why? Because Prophet Muhammad ﷺ himself said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect for you the highest of moral character traits. He summed up the whole message of Islam as a moral message. So that should be reflected in our educational process. And Islamized education has that as its focus. Islamic education, which is what people use most commonly, which consists of Arabic, Quran, Islamic studies. We call this Islamic education. But these are just subjects. It's not really Islamized education. It may be Islamic from that perspective of we have a secular curriculum and we put slots for Islamic studies, Arabic, Quran. And that's how Western civilizations in its early stages conveyed their information about Christianity. Was taught a separate subject, and sciences, etc., were taught as separate subjects. Whereas from the Islamic perspective, these should be integrated. We shouldn't have Islamic studies in the curriculum separate, taught by separate teachers in the sense of not necessarily conforming to the requirements, the standard requirements of teaching staff. I mean, many schools I've visited around the world, they have this lower standard for teaching of Islamic studies. And teachers are not really qualified in many places. And as a result, teachers not being properly trained and qualified, etc., they're not effective in teaching. I remember the school in which I taught in Riyadh in the 80s, Manarat Riyadh schools. When surveys were done amongst the students to determine what were the most popular subjects and which subjects were the most disliked subjects, they found in that survey that the most disliked were the Islamic. And the most popular were English, geography, other subjects. And the main reason was that the teachers were not properly trained. I was in the process of being trained as a teacher myself by my parents, who were both teachers, professional teachers from Canada, their certification from Canada, etc. So they would help me because I was invited to come and teach Islamic studies on the higher level in the school. But when they actually went to the grades which students were studying Islamic studies in, it was found that the grades which I taught, Islamic studies, was most popular because I had developed a connection with the students and had learned proper teaching techniques from my family. Whereas the other subjects, Arabic and so and so, disliked. Why? Because those teachers were used to teaching with a stick, hitting the students, even though they were not supposed to and all this, but they were still, abusing, brutalizing the students. So as a result of all of that, they were despised subjects. And this shouldn't be. Imagine in Islamic school, Islamic studies is the most despised subjects in your Islamic school. Well, this is a reflection of what's happening in the world today, the Muslim world today. When you look at the UN reports and other agencies analyzing the nations in terms of levels of corruption, the top countries, top 5 countries, 3 out of the top 5 are Muslim countries. We shouldn't be. We should be the most honest. Our countries should be known for its generosity, and many of them are. We are known to some different degrees. But in terms of corruption, the corruption shouldn't be the biggest label on us. But this goes back to the educational system, that we need to revamp this educational system in order for us to convey Islamic values in everything that is taught. Islamized education is a product of the deliberate attempt to integrate Islam into all aspects of education. And this is why the International Open University has as its motto, changing the nation through education. That's the motto. Because ultimately, the change that is needed is not going to occur except through education. That's what the UNDP and various bodies have stated clearly. The difference between the underdeveloped countries and the developed countries is education. So we need to bring that education back to the people, make it more accessible, and at the same time, we also need to integrate Islamic values into our educational systems. We need to bring morality back into the classroom. Moral messages should be conveyed from kindergarten to grade 12 and beyond. The moral message of Islam in all its different aspects should be conveyed in the process of education. This is the target that we need to set for ourselves, for our future. In North America, where schools in general are secular, we need to modify the curriculums in such a way that Islamic values are reintroduced into the school without compromising the secular subjects and their content, but enhancing that. I mean, this is the way of the earlier generations. If you go and look into the books of the great scientists and scholars of the 13th century, 12th century, etc., in Spain, in Damascus, etc., you find in their works, while discussing optics or discussing, medicine, and the law said, and the Prophet ﷺ said. So you'll find all of that interwoven in the course of the teaching of the various subjects. And we need to bring back that spirit into our educational systems. We need to elevate our schools back to the level that they deserve to be. So our children may not memorize prayer, its requirements, the actions, physical actions, the words that are said, and have a vague understanding of the meaning, but understand that Salah its goal is to increase our consciousness of God, of Allah. That's what is the real goal. And that's what needs to be stressed. More so than the physical outward actions. Because in the school which I taught in Manat Riyadh, one of my sons was studying in the Arabic section. And, he used to report back to me and say, well, my friends so-and-so, when the time for prayer comes, they run in and pray. They didn't make wudu. I know they went to the bathroom before and they just went in and prayed. He was shocked. But it was a common practice. So students will know all of the, conditions for validity of prayer and everything else, and yet go in and pray without wudu. It's not to say all the students are doing this, but some were. And that's a reflection of the incorrect emphasis on what is most important to be taught in our classrooms. And one of the points that I would stress is that for Islamized education to be successful, we have to have Islamized teachers. Teachers who are themselves conscious of the fact that education is ibadah. As we seek it, it's ibadah. As we convey it, it is ibadah. Getting the correct information, being properly trained for the job of teaching, this is the right of the students, that they be taught by qualified teachers. So we as teachers need to qualify ourselves and to take the best elements from what the West has come up with in terms of teaching and utilize it to benefit our students. In the Teachers College in Canada, I remember visiting one, and it had on its entranceway, make learning fun as the goal. Make it enjoyable. Make learning for the students enjoyable. And in this way, you win over the students and they get attached to you and your subject. Of course, when you tell that to a Quran teacher who's used to whacking the kids on a regular basis, make learning fun, make the learning of the Quran fun, they're going to look at you as a lost soul. You've lost your mind. You can't teach the Quran without a stick. Many of them have told me this time and time again. You have to use the stick. It's absolute necessity. But where did this come from? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ didn't beat anybody to learn the Quran, nor were the Sahaba known to beat their children or the young people in the society, or the tabi'een, those who followed them and so on. It came in at a particular time. Allah knows exactly when. It's an area, perhaps those who would like to do that research, at what point did teaching the Quran with a stick become popular? But bottom line is that this was not the way of the early generation. It's not the way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We need to take these sticks out of the hands of our Quranic instructors, and we need to give them training in teaching and how to motivate to reach the minds of the young people who have been placed in their hands as an amana, a trust from the Muslim community. And to let them know that when they strike those children, beat them and torture them, etc., this is not pleasing to Allah nor pleasing to the community. It's not something pleasing to them. Although it has been explained in many different ways, they will say, well, listen, when we hit the kids, this erases some of their sins. Because they're suffering. It's pain. And the Prophet ﷺ said every pain that the believer suffers purifies him or her of sin. So say, hey, we're helping them. A'udhu billah. Anyway, the point is that this is the challenge before us for Islamizing our school systems, to bring morality back into the classroom, to integrate Islam at all levels in the most appropriate ways. We don't turn our classes into Quran classes or Hadith classes or fiqh classes, but these areas of learning and knowledge are interwoven as appropriate. And it should be interwoven into the curriculums that are being used, in the lesson plans which the instructors, the teachers follow. It should be there, worked in already, not left to, well, if something comes to my mind while I'm teaching today, I can add this. If nothing comes, well, then there was nothing to add. No, it should be worked into the lesson plan the same way they have to deliver these subjects and certain aspects of the subjects. The Islamic content needs to be also worked in. So this is what I wanted to share with you all today with regards to Islamized education, a goal that we as educators should seek, a goal which will determine whether our educational institutions are places of ibadah or places of torture, places of guidance or places of misguidance. Because it's not other than the failure of our educational system which produced a level of corruption globally that our countries are known by and known for. And we will not remove it except by replacing those bad values with the Islamic values and Islamic concepts and Islamic guidance. Barakallahu feekum. I hope that these few thoughts and words were beneficial, and that the conference, the AIM conference, be successful, and that the effort to spread Islamized education into our communities is supported by such conferences and others to come. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Brothers and sisters in Islam, as long as there is haqq and batil, if you know what batil is, falsehood, existing on earth, they must collide. There must be conflict. As long as there is tawheed and there is shirk, they have to head to head. It's as long as there is sunnah, there is bid'ah, there is no way those two can pair or come together. There is no way. Likewise, in this world we have righteousness and wickedness. And you will notice that both groups actually, they seek the children. They want the next generation. Their focus is the next generation. Of course, if you are established in earth by passing on your culture, and this is how Dr. Bilal given a beautiful context to education. A lot of us assume that education is math and science, 1 + 1 = 2. No. Education is the society who is established, the people who make the calls in the society. They want to make sure that the same culture is passed on to the next generation so that they do not lose that power that they have. That's exactly what education is. It's not about 1 + 1 = 2. No. It's about the culture that you pass on to the next generation while you're conveying that, while you're teaching that. And that can be depicted in the way the teacher dresses, the way that the teacher speaks. It can be depicted in the pictures hanging on the walls in the classroom. It can be depicted in the language used in the school. That's the culture of the people. That's what education is. So pay attention here. Haqq and batil must come head to head. Now, if batil is the dominant force, they're going to make sure that this takes place in the next generation. Otherwise, they lose it. And we have evidence that they can actually go beyond the human, the mercy. Take, for example, the Pharaoh. Why the Pharaoh ended up slaughtering the newborn, the children? Why? Why did he do that? Anyone knows why? Why?
Oh, so he can eliminate.
He's trying to eliminate one child who will go out of that domain, who will not be adherent to his way, and he will threaten his power. Imagine, to kill the entire children of a community for what? For one child. For one child. I want to tell you that, and this may sound a little bit harsh, but I'm telling you right now, in America and in the West, they are slaughtering the children, slaughtering their fitrah by teaching them stuff that is out of this world. Gender, LGBT, sexual. What is this? What children have to do with this? What children, what people who are born, individuals who are born, the Prophet ﷺ told us, straight, على الفطرة. Straight. كل مولود يولد على الفطرة. Why do you mess up their minds with these ideologies? You want to pass on that culture to them. You want to slay them. Something that you may not, I'm certain that you know it, you heard it, but you may not understand it the way that I'm trying to convey it to you. How did the mother of Musa save Musa? What did she do? What did she do? No. Just say it the way it is. She thrown him in the river. You want to tell me this is how you save your child? Is that how you save your child? By the way, the river Nile at the time had crocodiles. They didn't have that high dam built. Allah is telling you, you may have to do the illogical to save your children. That's the message that you get. Don't fall. Don't say, I have to do that. I have to send my children to that place where they learn about the LBGTWXYZ. No. That's not the mother of Musa attitude. She thought. Mother of Musa is not a prophet. We know that women cannot be prophets, right? She got that thought. You know, that gut feeling, we call it the gut feeling. She received that gut feeling from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is what I have to do to save my child. Likewise, Dr. Bilal is taking that approach. You see, you have an issue here. You live already in an established educational system. You can't change it. You still want your child to receive a diploma that is what? Accredited by the accreditation bodies. That otherwise your child is not going to be recognized. So what should we do? So it's hard to introduce your own curriculum, the Islamic curriculum, which is based on what? What did he say? What is the essence of the curriculum in Islam? The essence of the message. He quoted the hadith. I was sent to do what? That's how the curriculum should do. That's how the culture of Muslims should do, is what? Manner. You can't do that. Then what do you need to do? You need to Islamize the existing curriculum, which is not a Muslim curriculum. You need to introduce Islamization into it. How do you do that? Number one, you look at the textbook. There is a text that talks about evolution. It talks about shirk. It promotes that there are other powers, forces that exist on the face of this earth. Now it's your turn as a Muslim teacher to teach your child this other side of the story. Listen, this is what they want you to understand, but there is a God out there who's in control. You teach them Tawheed. Actually, you use their corrupt material to teach the counter force. That's what is meant by the Islamization here. Because at the end of the day, you see, you're not trying to raise up a generation that is completely isolated from the circumstances here. You don't want that either. Because I want to tell you something, that Muslims have to see themselves as the beacon of hope for this society. The way that is America and the West are going is self-destructive. They are self-destroying. And look and read history, how all these beautiful civilizations or renaissances, whatever you want to call them, collapsed. It was not the material side that collapsed them. No, it was the moral side, the moral decline. You see, we're going what? We're going, what's iPhone now? We got iPhone 15 now? 16 or what? iPhone what? 14. 15 is coming. We're going up there, but at the same time we're declining what? Morally. And that's what will bring you down. That's what brought the Romans down. That's what brought the Greek. Read their history. When they started entertaining these things, these wicked thoughts, insinuated by shaitan. And you're trying to pass this on to the children. Now, you see, we chose to come and live here. So, Hadith al-Nu'man ibn Bashir, في صحيح البخاري, applies to us. What does it say, Hadith Nu'man ibn Bashir? Imagine, and I'm going to give you my understanding. I'm not quoting the hadith literally. Imagine a community put together on a boat, on a ship. Some of them ended up in the upper level, and the others ended up where? In the lower level. Somehow the people in the lower level has no direct access to water. For them to get water, they have to go up. I want you probably hear this for the first time. By the way, the people in the lower level, they had a very good intention. They said, we're bothering our brothers upstairs. We love them and we're bothering them. You know, you gotta give liberty and freedom. You gotta have tolerance. You know, the same approach. We love our brothers. We don't want to bother them anymore. So here is what we're gonna do. We're gonna dig a hole in the ship. They did this out of good intention, but if you read the hadith carefully, they were well intended. Of course, they don't want to drown them. Nobody's going to drown himself, but their thinking is what? Their mental ability is what? Doesn't see. Now, if the people in the upper level, which is the Muslims, supposedly, with their moral standard, with their objective morality, not subjective morality. You see, the community, the broader community where we live, they follow subjective morality, meaning democracy decides what's moral and what's what? Immoral. But our moral standards are what? Objective. What does it mean, objective? It comes from where? Qatada said, our mother Aisha was asked, how was the character of the Prophet? What did she say? Did you read the Quran? And most of the scholars of the Salaf explained the following verse, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Abdullah ibn Abbas, and their students, they said, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى دِينٍ عَظِيمٍ. You're in the best religion. As if the religion is the source of what? The character emanates, stems from the religion. Here we are, if we do not stop them from doing that. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm inciting hate here. Utilizing, and this is how we should speak as Muslims. Don't get yourself in trouble. Utilizing the lawful means, the lawful ways, the legal ways. Saying no to this, to protect the morals of this society, of this community. Otherwise, we're going to drown with them. Your kids are going to drown with them. And I'm telling you, when it comes to that LBGTWXYZ thing, it takes only one generation to corrupt. Because it's addictive. It has to do with addiction. And when people engage into this lewdness, into this wickedness, it becomes hard for them to leave. Although it is possible, always, for anybody to leave the haram to the halal. Shahid, or the important thing is, Dr. Bilal is telling you that you have to introduce into our schools something called Islamized curriculum. Not only the textbook, like you're going to come across a textbook that talks about pork. I don't know what's pork and has to do with education. In every textbook you will find the picture of what? But just look at your children, the picture of khinzir. I don't know what khinzir has to do with the whole thing, but it's there. Okay, you tell your children, here's the Islamized. Khinzir is haram in Islam. Oh. You're going to find a textbook that talks about music, as if music is what? You're going to tell your children music is haram. It's not halal. So here you are. You are producing a child with what we call a critical thinking mind. What is a critical thinking mind? He knows what is wrong and what is what? What is right. And I want to close with this, then I'll take your questions. That critical thinking child, everything, by the way, is in the Quran and Sunnah, was given to us in the Quran and Sunnah. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the boy the entire community wanted to produce as a sorcerer, graduate as a sorcerer. You know who I'm talking about? Surah Al-Buruj. You know the story there, right? Imagine the entire community wanted this boy to be what? A sorcerer. What this boy happened to have, he happened to have both sides of the story. Imagine this boy every day. I'm assuming you know the hadith, right? I'm assuming it. I mean, do you guys know it? Everybody knows? Should I quote it quickly? Do you know it? You don't. So there was a nation before us ruled by a king who was commanding the people to worship him. And he would dominate, keep control on them through sorcery. Sorcery here is metaphoric to lies, basically. It's like, sorcery now is like the media. It's like the Fox, like the CNN, that's the sorcery. Is making you think something that is not what? It's not true. Simply, that's what sorcery is. So this sorcerer was about to die, and he said, listen, you know and I know that the only way you're keeping your citizens under your domain, under your control, subdued to you, is through my lies, my sorcery. So now I'm getting old and I'm about to die. The only way for you to maintain your power is if you pass this on to what? Next generation. That's exactly how I started my talk, right? That's another evidence right here. So what can I do? Bring me a young man. So this young man goes to learn sorcery every day. But subhanallah, when Allah wills, that's why, we always, you see, we do what we do, but we always bank on Allah's work, Allah's mysterious work. You don't know how it's going to happen. But we're just seeking the means. Wallahi, ikhwa, that the help to the ummah could come from one person sitting in this crowd. Sitting, not talking. Sitting. Allah knows best who. The work of Allah, you never know how it's going to happen. So this boy is walking to receive his sorcery lessons. Subhanallah, he hears the truth being broadcasted by someone who's hiding away, a monk, who's really someone on Tawheed. Yani. We know that initially monkship was initiated by the people who are escaping persecution by the people who distorted Christianity or the teachings of Jesus. The true Muslims, yeah. So he was reading the revelation with a loud voice. So this young boy hears him. Himself, he said, I liked what I heard. It attracted me. You see, the truth is an attraction, especially to the kids. By the way, you may take a long time to teach a grown-up Tawheed. Wallahi, what al-rububiyyah, what al-uluhiyyah, what is that? And he keeps asking, but a child, wallahi, the easiest to teach Tawheed. Because it just, fitra is still what? Not tarnished. Our fitra is tarnished. The shahid, or the important thing is, this boy ended up learning Tawheed and Shirk the same day. He would actually go to learn Tawheed, then he goes to learn Shirk. To learn Iman, to learn Kufr. Isn't that what we're talking about, right? Isn't that the education we're talking about, right? That you end up what? Getting both sides of the story. And that's what we need to do to be successful. Because you don't want to produce a child who lives in a dream world. Because he's still going to have to interact with what? With the society. So he should be able to decide, to determine that this is wrong and this is right. Because he can't be with him all the time, can you? He can live all the time. He will leave our children behind us, correct? فالشاهد, the important thing is, subhanallah, this boy ended up developing that. And just to show you, Dr. Bilal brought up that issue of, I'm trying to, because I'm contextualizing his talk here. He talked about what? Beating up, right? The culture of beating up children, right? Okay. You know this boy, he was beaten up twice. But for what? For what? For arriving late to the sorcery lesson and for arriving late home. Not from the sheikh. Here's the thing. He would come first to the sheikh because the sheikh is in his way and he spends that time with the sheikh. He's a monk, right? But I'm using my own what? You guys know what I'm talking. Yeah. So he would arrive late to the sorcerer. Where you been? You're late. He would beat him up. Not only that, the sorcerer would insist that he would spend the same duration of time for the class. You're not going to go early because you arrived late. Now he gets home late. Who beats him up? The family. So he gets beaten up what? Tab billah alik, would you expect this boy to go back to the sheikh tomorrow? Because of him he was beaten up twice? Would you expect that? No. But he still went back to the sheikh. Why? Because the sheikh was what? An attraction. You see, what Dr. Bilal say that they ask, well, what is the most hated class? Huh? That shouldn't be the way. We should be what? We as imams, as teachers of Islam should be what? Whatever you have to do now. Lollipop, whatever, halal McDonald's, whatever you want to do. Whatever you have to do to teach your child the truth, to give them the second side of the story. Because I'm telling you, whether you give them the falsehood or not, they receive it. They get it. Wallahi, they get it. I have a child who works my phone like he was like learning IT in the womb of his mother or something. Wallahi, I never seen anything like that in my life. What are you doing? He said, oh, Dad, you can do this. I don't even know about it. So he's getting that sorcery side. Unfortunately, many Muslims deprive their children from what? The sheikh side. What they do is, some Muslims say, his child goes to the public school for what, 8 hours a day times 5. How many hours are those? Huh? 40, right? And then he would bring him to a weekend school for 1 hour. Go to 1 hour. So you want 1 hour. You see, read carefully that hadith. You will find out that this boy received the same portion. That's why the beating up was mentioned. He didn't just go to the sheikh, just say, hey, how you doing? He smiled at him and hello. He learned, he sat and learned from him. So give them, as a responsible parent, you're supposed to give them what? قال صلى الله عليه وسلم كلكم راع. All of you are shepherd. And all of you will be questioned regarding their custody or whatever you're put in charge of. Shadow, the important thing here, that this boy developed that critical thinking. See, this boy, after spending time, he said there is no way those two can be true. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, this is haqq, this is what? This is truth, this is falsehood. There is no way. And himself, he started developing this. That is why the first chance he got, the hadith is Sahih Imam Muslim, but the wording with the Imam al-Nasa'i, the Prophet mentioned that there was a lion that blocked the road so the people could not go to their work. There was a bridge that they have to cross in order to go to their farm or something. So a lion came and what? And sat on that bridge. So now they're stranded at home. So they called the city. We pay taxes. Don't you collect taxes from us? Take care of that. We gotta go to work. So the king called who? Sorcerer. Come on, do some magic here. He said, you know what? Let me try this boy now. See if he's ready to go or not. So he receives the first job. Homework. But he had a different agenda. You see, he developed already what?
Critical thinking.
Right, why? What did he say? اليوم أعلم. Today I will find out which is more beloved to Allah. What the Sheikh is teaching me or what the sorcerer is teaching me. اليوم أعلم أأمر الراهب أحب إلى الله أم أمر الساحر. And he started with أمر الراهب, that shows you that he's already what? And he takes a little pebble, hajar. He knows that the pebble doesn't what? No way you're going to kill a lion with a small rock. There is no way you can do that. But he's basically asking Allah what? Guide me. Guide me. No, guide me. Show me a sign. Allahumma. وشوف الدعاء. You know, when you invoke Allah sincerely for the truth, for the guidance, wallahi, He will give it to you. Allahumma in kana amru الساحر أمر الراهب أحب إليك من أمر الساحر من أمر الساحر فاقتل هذه الدابة. Oh Allah, if you love what the Sheikh has been teaching me more than what the sorcerer has teaching me, kill that lion with that rock. And it happened. You're getting that. That's what you want education to be. I think they're telling me time for lunch, otherwise we're going to disrupt the entire program. But I just wanted to give context to the talk of Dr. Bilal, that it is extremely important, ya ikhwah, that we pay attention to the next generation of Muslims. If we really want to make a difference in this society, we have to protect the children of the Muslims from this dominant culture. The dominance of the culture that we have will turn our children into something else that you don't want to even think about. Jazakumullah khaira. I don't know if there is any questions or not, but I'm ready to ask questions or time. Sheikh Adli said time to go for lunch. So let's go for lunch inshallah. Jazakumullah khaira. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.